Nobody has scored more than 17 points against the Georgia Bulldog defense this year, and that was against the Tennessee Volunteers. Georgia allowed 17 points, but scored 40 something that game. Look, Georgia's played in one close game all year, but the real question is, can Alabama score enough points to beat Georgia? Can Alabama break this defense? That's the question. Is Bryce Young capable of doing it? Ryan Curley from Dog Post bringing you all the details, my answers to those questions, some commentary, anything you guys want. And before I really get into it, make sure you're going to the site, dogpost.com. We're doing a deal, $2 for 2 months. Dean doesn't do that very often, so you got to jump on that while you can. Make sure you head to site.post.com, subscribe. Listen, Alabama's got a good offense, right? I mean, I've got all the numbers pulled up in front of me. I've been looking at all this stuff, just trying to determine what I think. Anything can happen, obviously. That's why they play these games. But, Alabama's got a really good offense with Bryce Young. But they've struggled. They struggled in the first half against Tennessee. We saw them just a few days ago struggle mightily against Auburn. They scored 10 points in regulation and had to really gut it out to beat them in overtime. Is Alabama capable of putting up enough points to beat Georgia? Again, especially against this Georgia defense. Georgia's allowing less than 7 points a game. That is the next best defense in the country so far has been Clemson. They're allowing 15 points a game. I think the number was 83 points that Georgia's allowed all year, and Clemson's allowed like 190 or something like that. It's I don't know the exact number for Clemson, but it's absolutely ridiculous how well Georgia's defense has played, and they've had 3 shutouts, maybe more. I mean, listen, they only allowed 3 points to Clemson. They shut out Vanderbilt. They shut out Georgia Tech. They shut out UAB offensively. They shut out Arkansas. It's been ridiculous. Florida only had 1 touchdown. Tennessee only having 2 touchdowns. Kentucky only having 2 touchdowns. I don't know what I'm missing, but Georgia's dominated all year long. And, yeah, Alabama's the best offense that Georgia's facing to this date, but Alabama against an Auburn defense that's not elite, I mean, they're above average, really had a hard time scoring, and it becomes difficult to see them just have absolute success against Georgia's defense. Bryce Young hasn't dealt with the edge rushers, the linebackers, the speed of Georgia's defense, the way that they're going to get after him. I think it's very important that Georgia's secondary remains on their assignment when you have a quarterback like Bryce Young who runs around and makes plays with his legs, and if you give him enough time is going to find an open man. He's got good receivers. Mechie, Jameson Williams, these are really good wide receivers. Ja'Cory Stevens, I think is his name, guy who had the game-tying touchdown against Auburn. Anyway, can Alabama put up 20 against Georgia's defense? I don't know, man. I kind of don't think so. If they really struggle to put up 10 in regulation against Auburn, I mean, Alabama's had a hard time with LSU. What tells us that their offense is going to find any success against Georgia's defense? No one's had success against Georgia's defense. The most success anyone's had against Georgia's defense has been Tennessee, and that was really more so because Georgia's making mistakes. So the important thing for the Dogs is going to be that they need to be as mistake-free as possible. They need to remain on their assignments. But, I mean, we've ran down this list several times this year. The stars on Georgia's defense. And, of course, anchored on the line by Jordan Davis. But you have other people on that line like Nolan Smith, Trayvon Walker, Jalen Carter, Devontae White. The list goes on and on. Your second and third strings are good players. Nasir Stackhouse is a third string and has good players. People like Tremont Wathour come in, Robert Beal. These guys come in at outside linebacker, defensive end, and just produce. You get Nakobe Dean, who arguably is the best defensive player in college football, even though Jordan Davis gets all the hype. Nakobe Dean's back there taking 50-yard interceptions to the house and diving for interceptions. He's fast, man. He's one of the fastest dudes on defense. And then you have really great athletes in the secondary. You've got a hard hitter in Scene. You've got a really big and long guy like Keely Ringo. You got Darian Kendrick who's been locked down. I mean, you got Dan Jackson coming up and popping people in the second level. I mean, Georgia and Alabama doesn't have a Najee Harris. They don't have, as good as the wide receiver room is. They don't have you missed two Biletnikoff winners in the last 2 years, and in the last 3 years, Jerry Jeudy and then Devontae Smith, who also won the Heisman, and then Najee Harris, who is balling out in the NFL now, who was a superstar for Alabama. There's not as much star talent on this Alabama team, and this defense is not as cohesive. The other thing that I forgot to mention was that Georgia's putting up over 40 points a game, just 2 less than Alabama. I mean, they're both in the top 6 for scoring offense. So, I have a lot more confidence in Georgia scoring against Alabama than I do in Alabama scoring against Georgia. I just have a hard time seeing it. As skilled as the Tide can be on offense, as magical as Bryce Young has shown us, he has his moments. I have a really hard time seeing... I could be wrong, but I have a hard time seeing Alabama crack 20. I just don't know if any team really has the capability to crack 20 against the Georgia. We're watching a really special defense here. A really special defense. The job's not finished, but what we're watching is very unique and doesn't happen very often. And I think Alabama's going to find that out on Saturday. Dogpost.com. Remember to go to the site.